I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Now, a couple, month and a half ago now, back in February, Beck, one of VIMTV's favorite artists, came out with his 12th studio record. 12 studio records, and I feel like I love every one of them. I know you love every one of them. This one's called Morning Phase. There's a bit of a background on this, but Tom is an absolute Beck fanatic, and he knows everything there is to know about Beck. So Tom, take it away.
So much pressure there when you say things like that.
I'm going to just sip my coffee and stare at you.
Alright, yeah, that's not awkward at all. You know, he's actually going to do it, too. Holy crap, I better just get rolling here. So, Morning Phase is Beck's 12th studio album. We've been waiting a long time for this. His last album, Modern Guilt, came out in mid-2008. Yeah. This is the longest break he's taken from releasing a studio album. Now, he did come out with Songwriter a while back, which was kind of an interesting project, but we don't really count that as a studio album because he didn't take it to the studio. No. He just let other musicians kind of run with it, which is just one of the coolest ideas. And this guy is full of things like that. He's one of the most diverse and eclectic musicians out there. You know, if David Bowie is the king of reinvention, I would at least put Beck as like the heir to the throne. I mean,
or maybe the prince.
Yeah, he's the prince of reinvention. Okay. But Prince is an artist also, so that's, I don't know, that gets kind of weird. That's just kind of a weird word. It seems so intimate when it doesn't need to be. Yeah, let's avoid that. So, you know, he's been everywhere. He's run the gamut stylistically. I mean, you've got albums like Midnight Vultures that are like weird neo-funk soul, psychedelic. You've got Sea Change, which is kind of a soft rock, very mellow album. You've got Odelay, which absolutely defies any description.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the genius of Beck, is that his music has always stirred the pot of the music industry. He's always doing cutting-edge stuff that's really just sounds like homegrown. It just sounds like it's just Beck doing his thing, yet it's awesome, and really, there's very few artists out there that can replicate it. He is one of the most original artists on the scene.
Absolutely. And so, coming into Morning Phase, we'll cut right to the chase here. A lot of people are drawing comparisons with his album Sea Change. Now, there is some warrant to that, especially, I mean...
Well, it was designed to be a sister album.
Exactly, and that's what I was getting to, is that Beck didn't try to dispute any of that. In fact, he kind of opened himself up to it, in the sense that, well, not only did he call it kind of the sister album to it, but he also got a lot of the same musicians he was working with during Sea Change to work with him on this one. So it was really kind of an interesting choice to do that, but I think there are really some key differences here. Now, I think that the comparisons are going to be a little bit overinflated simply because while Morning Phase and Sea Change do sound a bit alike, I think there are a lot of key differences, but more than anything, I mean, they sound more like each other than any other two Beck albums do. So because of that, it almost is a little bit exaggerated, the comparisons. But the key differences to me is that when you listen to Sea Change, I really feel like Sea Change, while it's mellow, is still kind of a pop rock record. There's a lot of kind of fluttering electric guitar in there, still an emphasis on drums and bass on tracks like Paper Tiger, whereas...
String backgrounds.
Yes.
I mean, very Beatlesque, like George Martin coming in and...
Totally. Morning Phase, I feel like, is much more alt-country.
Yeah, like, I would totally... It's a country down, track 12. I mean, a perfect example of that. Really good alternative country track, actually, and its position on the album is really good. I mean, this album, while like Sea Change, is not... They're two different albums. And one criticism I've heard from a lot of friends that I've talked to that have liked Beck and listened to Morning Phase is that it just sounds too much like Sea Change. It just sounds too... I think that's a really shallow criticism and a piss-poor way to write this album off without giving it a chance.
Well, and it's also based purely on expectation. Because we all expect Beck to take a complete left turn every album he puts out. But just because it's slightly at all similar in mood, I think you're right. It's not a reason to...
But what's bullshit about that is that, I mean, like Odelay... Odelay was his definitive sound, but Guero just reinvented Odelay's sound just in a poppier format with a little bit of electronics mixed in.
Same producers
it's not like he's always done original stuff. The only person he ever copies really is himself. But you know, I think he's allowed to do that from time to time. My point is that just because the sounds are similar doesn't mean that these are the same albums or just carbon copies of one another. We love Sea Change. We've actually reviewed Sea Change on this channel
long time ago,
and we both loved it. I mean, it was one of our It's one of our
mutual favorite.
It's one of our mutual favorite albums. So it only makes sense that Morning Phase, we're naturally going to like that sound. However, what I got engrossed in when reviewing Morning Phase was the differences. It was the subtleties, and really that alt country vibe to this. I mean, it's intriguing. I mean, it's a different mood. And, Sea Change definitely had like an aspect of like this theme and mood of heartbreak throughout the entire album. I mean, the most uplifting track is Paper Tiger, and still I don't, that song's just powerful. But Morning Phase has a much more optimistic vibe, although I would say that at times the lyrics don't actually fit that vibe.
No, but the presentation of it does.
The presentation.
And a lot of the instrumentation. You do get an optimistic kind of outlook to it. And it works that way as kind of sister albums, because I've always felt that Sea Change is a better nighttime album. I love listening to that if I'm like driving down a country road at night going home or something. It's just relaxing. Morning Phase, I mean, let's think about it. It's clearly a morning album, and it works that way. And it's almost like if Sea Change is that down point at night, it's like you have the whole evening and night to refresh, and you wake up in the morning feeling optimistic. That's how I feel these two albums go together.
And one of the strongest things about Morning Phase is that there's a number of just fantastic tracks on it. Track 2, Morning, it opens up with an introduction track cycle. Anytime an album opens up with an intro track, I get a little bit of tingly. It's just a good thing. It shows, it's an indication right off the bat, hey, we're presenting this as an album. We want you to listen to it as an album. That's what I key in on right away. Got more. You have the track 2, Morning, Say Goodbye, Blue Moon, track 5 just makes me want to drink a beer.
Blue Moon is incredible. That is by far my favorite.
It is a great record. Probably one of the best songs that 2014. We'll see what the year has to offer, but probably going to be one of the best songs of 2014. Wave, Turn Away, track 11. I mean, that where this album has this optimistic vibe, you get to turn away, and all of a sudden it's dark, moody, and you got that, like moving guitar line that is just super, super intense. Even though he's not like screaming, there's an intensity to that song that really is gripping.
One thing that helps back that up too, and in a lot of other moments on this album that you didn't quite get on Sea Change, is a focus on vocal, not just vocal presentation, but vocal arrangements. I mean, you get a lot of vocal layers here. I mean, he's just layering his voice so many times, and it fills up the space, so it's just this like, just this huge vocal moment, and I really like all the moments like that on this album.
Yeah, there's also still a lot of string production too that I think sounds very good, and a good variety of styles on this album. Now, albeit it's a little bit in the background, you have to dig for it, but that's kind of the rewarding part of listening to music. You don't want music to always be surface value. You want to have to dig at it a little bit to understand it, to chew your food. The closing track, Waking Light, fantastic closer. I mean, every time I listen to this album, I think that the biggest strength of this album is that there's so many solid tracks you can listen to individually, but you can play it from start to finish, and it's a very rewarding listening experience. I mean, Beck, I think, hit the ball out of the park on this one. This is a very solid record that people, I think, are overlooking just because it sounds so much like Sea Change, and Sea Change caused quite a splash in 2003 when it was released. Tom, what are you giving this one?
I'm giving this an even 90. Okay. I love it.
You love it a little more than I do.
That's fine.
Really, 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 really like it. I'm going to go 84.
All right.
Which puts this in the upper 80s from us, which is a very, very strong album. This is clearly going to be the top album of the year so far for us. So if you guys listen to Morning Phase and have a disputing opinion, or maybe you want to agree with us, we'd love to hear your feedback, because this album is causing a lot of attention, from Beck fans and music enthusiasts alike. Leave us a comment. www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let us know what albums 2014 or really any of all time you'd like to see us review on this channel. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.